Hey everyone, this is the GunTube update and Trigger Time after chat, where we're just, gonna continue talking about things, just kind of hanging out with everyone. I'm working on GunTube as we speak. The update really is, I'm gonna start getting a bit more people in to help me stress test it. So I do have a backup of a lot of the user accounts when a lot of people originally signed up, like Never Enough Ammo, Ghost Tactical and Clover Tac. I'm starting to restore some of those accounts. I'm not done yet. I will make another video to let everybody know that I've restored as many accounts as I can from an old backup. So, and I'll I'll upload a couple of teaser videos from their YouTube site to correlate on their channels to just have something on there for them. Because right now, what I'm doing is I'm stress testing it. But with Never Enough Ammo losing his getting a strike on YouTube, I'm not too optimistic on it. Yes, I know he'll probably get it off after 90 days. It's probably what will happen. But again, if they're going to go after him for just for calling it as it is, whether right or wrong to YouTube's policies, that's not a policy I want to adopt or I want to have on GunTube. I mean, I respect your right to free speech. I respect your right to the Second Amendment, more so than the right to free speech, but that's only because I like shooting guns more. I mean, you can't argue with me on that one, but I still believe you have the right to free speech, whether right or wrong. Do I believe that sometimes your right to free speech has consequences? Hell yes. You can say whatever you want, but just realize that whatever you say sometimes might get you into a bit of trouble. So just keep that in mind. I'm not saying you still don't have the right to say it, but if you say it, just be prepared for any consequences that come as a result of you saying that. So. But again, you won't have any consequences on GunTube unless you say something bad or stupid or something that would constitute getting in trouble for. Like, don't be like that guy in Florida. More or less. No terroristic threatening, no saying you're going to go commit mass murder or something. That's no-go on GunTube, period. But everything else is pretty much, open season. I mean, if you're going to go and yell at someone, say they're stupid, and here's the reason why, go for it. I mean, even if you're going to yell at me and say I'm stupid and, this is why Night Strike sucks. Go ahead. I mean, it makes me sad. I might cry, but you know what? I acknowledge that not everyone will like me. Not everybody will get along or like each other in this world. Some of us do. Some of us can get past it and act like adults. And then there are some of us that just can't act like adults, even though they're like 60 years old. It's just how it is. So, anyways, Gary, what's going on with you? With Match Chat this afternoon or this morning, what'd you think?
Oh, I pretty much sat through the whole thing. By the way, thanks for the invite.
Oh, no problem.
I mean, he was pretty much defending his position on, his statements and stuff like that, and why his original channel got banned. And it's a shame. I know there's probably just certain words and phrases he used that may have caused the issue. It's hard to tell at this point. It may just be somebody targeting him too. I don't suppose we'll ever know.
Right. I don't know why he got striked. Clover Tac says it's because he was saying something negative to children, talking down to them, but if YouTube has a policy against that, I guess if they constitute that as cyberbullying, then yeah, Matt did something wrong. But if it was just because he was talking down to them and not really bullying them, but trying to prove their position, is faulty, and here's why, then they just went after him to go after him, regardless of whether he was talking down or not. I mean, I can see all sides to it. I understand.
Well, you can argue with somebody without calling them derogatory names, I suppose. That's probably a lot of it.
Right. I understand that. It's just, I think it's pretty silly to go after him for that, just because there's the fact that when, there's a lot of the left that go and say derogatory names to, gun owner, not even just the left, just the anti-gunners. They do it a lot on YouTube too, but they don't get their channel striked. There's the Young Turks, which not only are they anti-gun, they're just left-wing nut jobs, and they talk down to the other side too, but they don't get striked. So I don't know if it's just the factor that it was because he was talking down to a teenager and they considered it cyberbullying, whether it was because he was talking down to them. Not that, if you look at YouTube, there are tons of videos where people are talking down to other people. So it's probably one of those lines that someone thought that it was appropriate to strike his channel for that, and he has to deal with it.
Well, I think a lot of the difference is we on the pro gun side don't go out of our way to watch videos of the opposing viewpoints and to call people out on what they say. But on the opposite side of the spectrum, the anti-gun people do look for every opportunity they can to call us out for what we do, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah. Hey, the Clover Tactics yelling, the young turds have 70% of their videos restricted. Give me a break. Learn YouTube, guys. Come on. Well, we're going to learn it, but that doesn't mean we're not going to learn it kicking and streaming.
And I'll admit there's a lot of things I'm not aware of. I mean, Clover probably is a lot more on the pulse of YouTube than most of us are. I don't follow the Young Turks or any of that stuff. I just really...
It's probably listed somewhere in the acceptable use policy and whatnot of what you can and can't do on YouTube. And CloverTac probably has gone back and actually read it. And I think CloverTac, maybe one of these days you need to do... I'm not sure whether one of these days you want to do a piece on your show of the acceptable policy, what you can and can't do on YouTube, because that might be, you can tell people straight out, this is what they'll go after you for, or this is what you can get flagged for. I mean, that might be an article that you could do on one of your shows, like maybe on the late night. But and Clover, you've got a position, and I respect your position, and I understand that you're trying to tell us how things are, and we're just not listening. But I don't mind you coming in and telling us how things are. I'm not going to say you don't have that right. Everybody's got that right. Whether we're right or wrong, or you're right or wrong, hey, it is how it is. So,
and here he is.
I don't mind. It's just, I've seen worse from the other side, and they don't get striked.
You better not mind, because I'll reach through the freaking cam and slap you. So I'll get violent. It don't hurt my feelings one bit.
But as I said, we may want to have you may want to do on like your
here's the thing. Ghost and I both warned Matt days ago about the potential with going after these kids. Did we not, Ghost?
I just jumped in. I have no idea what you just said.
We warned Matt several days ago about going after these kids. Did we not?
Yeah.
Ghost is reverberating, so I muted him.
Yeah, that's fine.
You
said yeah.
Yeah. So
here's the YouTube policy, in case you're wondering.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. I said, yeah, we warned them. We talked. I had a conversation with them earlier in the week.
We were like,
it's not just
careful. Be careful. It's the way you're saying it. Be careful. And then, he gets striked. So, I don't want to pull a Yankee and say, I told you so, but I told you so. You know, here's the policy: harassment and cyberbullying.
Well, that's what I was saying earlier.
Well, let me read it, because people don't go and they don't read crap, and it ticks me off, and then they want to whine and complain. There's a way to play this game. I've said it over and over and over again. The liberals, the left, the anti-gunners, whoever you want to call them, they know how to play it. The people on the right, the pro-gunner, they don't pay any attention. They holler free speech, right there, this, that, the other, and they don't take time to learn nothing. They don't keep up. And we can't combat. We can't get any headway, and that's why. And that's what we've been railing on for 2 weeks now, is to learn this stuff, is to understand this stuff. You know, that way we can be more effective. Okay, here's the policy. I'll read it verbatim. Harassment and cyberbullying policy. We want you to use YouTube without fear of being subjected to malicious harassment. In cases where harassment crosses the line into malicious attack, it can be reported and it will be removed. In other cases, users may be mildly annoying or petty and should simply be ignored. Harassment may include abusive videos, comments, and messages. Revealing someone's personal information, including sensitive, personally identifiable information such as social security numbers, passport numbers, or bank account numbers. Maliciously recording someone without their consent. Deliberately posting content in order to humiliate someone. Bingo. That's probably what got dinged. Unwanted sexualization, which encompasses sexual harassment or sexual bullying in any form. Enticement to harass other users or creators, and making hurtful and negative comments and videos about another person.
That's what it was.
Well, you know what? You can get the point across, and I've hammered this down, and nobody wants to listen. You know, you can get the point across without pounding your fist and calling names and cursing and just being a ne'er-do-well. You know, it doesn't require all of that.
Ne'er-do-well. Wow, I hadn't realized we were back in the 17th century.
Well,
or is that the 18th?
I want to say something else, but in the interest of staying clean, like I prefer to do, I don't want to use that word. But you know, we have to. We can't continue this notion that's out there, and this is part of the division that's in the gun community. It's going to happen. I don't know how to get over it. I mean, I'll continue to push my narrative that we change the way that we've got to change the way that we're doing this. We can't, you know, oh, we fight fire with fire. We get back into their face. We do. No, we don't. No, we don't. We establish a reasonable, articulate option for people. We realize that, you know, the people we're quote unquote fighting against are 5%, 10%, maybe at the very most of the population. It's not the entire country. And I'm sure if you live in a state that has already years ago enacted assault weapons ban, or years ago established restrictions and you know, just continue to shove stuff down your throat. You know, I know it's disheartening. I get that. But, you know, I've heard people, even with California, I've heard 50 Cal Karma talk about, you know, the people around where he lives, and, you know, a lot of the people aren't that way. And, you know, the numbers as far as, you know, the groundswell, as far as the grassroots, even in California, you know, there's massive numbers that are pro Second Amendment, pro gun. You know, we're not alone. But the problem is we can't bring other people in, because we want to either, you know, we want to do one of two things. We either want to name call each other, which doesn't help, or we want to name call the left, which doesn't help. And then included in that also is the ranting and railing and raving and all that good stuff. But anyway, that's policy. That video, it violated that policy, period. It violated a couple of things in that policy. So there you go. Now,
So you can get away with that if you're restricted?
hopefully he gets a review. Hopefully you can get away with what?
You can get away with saying all that stuff if your channel is set to restricted then, right?
No, you can't. Well, it depends on if it's reported or not.
Okay.
Depends on if it's reported or not. Then it also depends on the makeup of the channel and if you've got protection from a multi-channel network. That's another thing that they don't realize. Back when Apocalypse hit and everybody said, "Oh, Crowder did this," as a matter of fact. Come out, Crowder, Mark Dice, a couple of them. They come out. They said, "Oh well, we're being we're being discriminated against." Actually, that's part of the PragerU lawsuit too. As a matter of fact, we're being discriminated against because of the ads, and we're not getting ads, and we're not. Okay, whoa. That's because a certain amount of content is set to restricted, on their particular channel. In PragerU's case, it was like 12% of their videos were set to restricted, so they weren't getting ad money. Well, the Young Turks, which I mean that's a garbage channel. Everybody on the anywhere moderately right agrees that that's a garbage channel. But here's the problem: they have their own multi-channel network. They run their own advertising deals. Direct with AdSense. It's not like us where and the majority of other channels out there, by the way, that just sign up for the monetization and then never learn, never touch, never do anything. It's just whatever YouTube gives us. They don't do that. They actually have an advertising team in place that works with AdSense, back and forth to, I guess, broker deals directly with advertisers. Crowder they finally figured all of this out finally. And they started that's where he started the Mug Club and he did all this other stuff, is to try to raise the funds and get the revenue coming in so he could branch out and do things like that. We all know that the left is supported by money. Somebody has said that. There was an argument, I think, made on one of Matt's chats about that. Somebody kept going, it's the money, it's the money, it's the money. The right really doesn't have a George Soros or who am I thinking? Bloomberg, or any of those type people, or even a Warren Buffett to an extent. Bill Gates, gives to leftist organizations and ideas. We don't have that. And I say we, I mean, not that I'm anywhere near extreme right, but the right doesn't have that.
Yeah, there's a couple statements.
And it doesn't have that, and we don't have that for a reason. And it's sort of a badge of honor in a way. And I've talked about this before. The reason that, and when I say right in this sense, when I'm talking right and left, I'm talking about on a pro-Second Amendment spectrum, not necessarily a political spectrum. Okay, I want to make that clear because we need to be clear about what we're talking about, and that's what I'm talking about here. And the problem with the further right you get on that spectrum, the reason that you don't have as much organization is because we're all individuals. We all believe in individualism. We all believe in personal freedom and personal responsibility. It's not a collective thing.
Right.
So that's foreign to us. So we've got to find little ways that we can come together as individuals to affect change, because we're never going to be able to organize like the left. We're never going to be able to do what the left does. We can't, because by nature on that spectrum, that's not who we are.
All right. Ghost, do you have anything
Can I
you want
speak
to add?
something while he takes a break?
Yeah, Ghost, go for it. I'm working on GunTube on the side here, so you guys want to jump in, please do so. I can't speak all the time either.
Well, I just want to bring up a couple comments that were made out there in the chat, and one thought for me. And we were talking about earlier about playing the game against on YouTube and getting these strikes and all that. What you have to understand is as a community, I'm not saying everybody individually, but as a community, we have the mystique of being the flag bearer for the Constitution, the shall not be infringed, the howl at the moon, you will not take my rights from my cold dead hands, this, that, and the other. That is exactly how we are looked upon. We are looked upon as the conspiracy theorists, the tinfoil hat wearing people. That is exactly how the left looks at us. We are the radical people that will do anything it takes to defend our rights. So the problem of us out here and bullying, cyberbullying, and yelling shall not be infringed, and becoming taken. And I'm not taking you, Night Strike, but there are a lot of people that take that little statement and make it cliche. And the words shall not be infringed are a joke and a punchline now for them because we have made it so. So if we want to change the game, guys,
I only say it because I believe it.
I'm not saying that's what I said. I did not say you. I'm saying our community. Our community uses it as a punchline sometimes. And the problem that we're going to have against the other side is they look at us as redneck, uneducated, gun-toting hillbillies that are freaking weird. That's how they look at us, guys, regardless if that is the truth or not. They aren't worried about us in a sense because they know that we're not going to be able to mobilize as big as they are because we are conspiracy theorists, gun-toting hillbilly rednecks. That's how they look at us. So if we really want to make a difference, then instead of howling at the moon every time we get a chance and having videos being put out there, I'm not throwing Matt, but I'm just saying in general, we cannot be bullying people. We cannot be talking we cannot be talking civil war. That is the most destructive rhetoric that you can possibly have. Civil war is the worst thing that could happen. And unfortunately, Ben, what you also have to understand is we're not talking about a country that is under attack by the Second Amendment, okay? Yes, there are some definite gun control bills and laws that are bad, but we're going to be looking at this from the state level. The states are where you're going to have to worry about civil unrest. The states are where they're really going to be coming after our rights. So it's not going to be a federal or a nationalistic thing. It's going to have to happen inside the states themselves. And so I understand that civil war is a thought that maybe some of the younger people have, but civil war will absolutely destroy what we are as a country. We got away with it in 1860s because we were a year old or 100 years old.
Right.
We can't take civil war in today's society and do anything good, because understand this, guys, if it ever comes down to the people versus the government,
we can't win.
We get slaughtered. And then what happens after that? They take away every single right we have. They will take away free speech. They will take away, not being able to incriminate yourself. They're going to take away every single thing. It'll become a dictatorship. We will be under martial law. And if you think it's bad now, wait and see what happens with the Civil War. So my point is we have to change the tide of what we're doing as a community. We have to change the face of who we are as a community. We have to understand that they look at us in a certain way, whether or not it's justified or not. That's how they look at us. So instead of yelling about being restricted and being striked and all that, let's change the rhetoric that we're sending out there. We have to change what we're doing. All right, that's
the system. Play the system. It's that simple.
Playing the game. We got to play it right back. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we play it our way. We can't do it because, like I said, people, the way that you convert people, the way that you pull those people in the middle over, and I get so tired of saying the same things over and over, and I know you guys out there get tired of hearing it too. But, the way you pull those people in the middle over, those fence riders, those whatever, you pull them over by showing that there's a better way, by showing that the people to the left have hoodwinked them. The people to the left have sold them a bill of goods. People to the left don't know what they're talking about. And they're just using fear and violence and everything else. And I'm sorry, I mean, calling people names and ranting and railing, I mean, that's, in a sense, I mean, that's violence. I mean, you can go to jail for having a screaming match with your wife. Yeah. If your neighbor's calling in, it can happen. There's
Well,
a thing. There's a thing.
But it
There's
has
such
to
a
happen
thing.
in a certain amount of
There's
times.
such a. I understand, but there's such a thing as verbal abuse. Is my point.
Right.
So
No, you're absolutely right.
words can be violent. So if there's laws and regulations and whatever on the books that say that, then certainly people's perceptions are that it can be abusive and it can be violent. So if we're doing those same things, we have to set ourselves apart. We have to be an alternative. And we're not an alternative if we're doing things the same way.
Right.
All right, I want to mention something that Gary put out there, and he said he's been trying for 4 weeks to get, I'm assuming he means anti-gunners in a conversation, either on Matt's chat or someone else's, anybody's chat. And he said he has had no luck with it. Here's why. There is no way that an anti-gunner is going to come on to a pro-gun show, because once again, how do they look at us? They look at us as the howl at the moon shall not be infringed from my cold dead hands. They also know that the majority of their rhetoric is not necessarily, a lot of it is false, but most of it's just because they're uneducated in what it is. So they're not going to come into one of our stuff and have a debate because they know they're going to get slaughtered. Okay. But here's what we can do. Instead of asking them to come to our fight, why don't we go to them? How many people out there actually go to some of the liberal leaning live shows that are on YouTube or podcasts or Facebook Live and all that and sit in on their chat rooms? And once you're there, not say howl at the moon for my cold dead hands, have facts, stay calm, be very respectful, call them Mr., call them Mrs. Okay. All right, Phoenix, that's great. There's a time and place for that. I don't believe this is it because we're actually having a fairly
we're trying to be serious here, Phoenix. If you want to be funny,
here's the thing. How many people are willing to go on to a liberal left-leaning live chat or podcast and sit in their audience with very much respect, with facts and figures, and just throw out ideas to their chat? Whether or not that host or not sees them is irrelevant, because you might have 1,000 people watching that chat. And if you're willing to throw some facts and figures and have a logical, respectful discussion with some of those people in that, then maybe they'll start coming to ours. But if you just start saying, hey, would you want to be on our chat? They're going to say, hell no, because they know it's G used this word for us. It's an ambush. They're not going to be ambushed. So let's take the fight to them.
Hey, Ghost. That was Ben Farrell talking to me. That was not my.
Yeah, I know. Right. Oh, I know that. But what I'm saying is the statement was made and we all have been trying to get anti-gunners, but it's not going to happen. So why not take the discussion to them instead of asking them to come to us? And there's nothing wrong. I mean, I'll put it to you this way. If there's an anti-gunner that comes into one of our chats, how are they treated? Let's be honest. How are they treated? They're treated like a second-class troll. That's not good. We can't be that way. If we go to their chat and we go there being respectful and all that, and they treat us like that, then we can have something to say. But until we go try to be on their side and talk to them on their turf, that's going to open a lot more doors. They're saying, well, these people are pretty serious because they're willing to come to our turf. We won't go to theirs, but they'll come to ours. Okay. Yeah. And they might block you, Beaver. They very well could. But at least you made that attempt. At least you made that attempt.
Here's the thing if they block you. Here's the thing if they shut you down. Here's the thing if you enter into everything in a logical, reasonable way. If you're not telling them stuff, because I hear that all the time. People go, there's this person out here, and I try telling them, or I told them, no. That's not how we've talked about this. You've got to find a starting point for the conversation. And let me tell you something. Here's how you learn that. Or here's where it really clicked with me. Okay. Go watch Crowder. Whether you like Crowder or not. Some people do, some people don't. I understand that. But go just watch his Change My Mind. Go watch that. Seriously. That is a model for what we need to be doing to talking to people, because he tries to find a common denominator, a starting point for the conversation. He doesn't jump. He doesn't jump right out there with "shall not be infringed" or "well, you just hate guns" or "you don't know what you're talking about," or like I've heard some people say, they enter into an argument with somebody that may be leaning, maybe they're not hardcore anti-gun, but they're leaning that way, and they say, "Well, I don't know because I just couldn't. I just don't think I could ever shoot somebody, even if it was in self-defense." And people come back and go, "Well, what if they were raping your wife? Or what if they were raping your children?" And I mean, my God, could you scare anybody any more than you just did by saying that? Let's back it up and let's try to figure out where they're coming from first. And let's find that starting point and take it from there. But we've got to learn too to be able to identify them. And with Crowder, it's the same way. And if you don't believe me, go check out his one on, I think it's Changed My Mind on White Male Privilege or Male Privilege or something, to where he tells you when he starts, he's like, "Oh, this was horrible." He said, "Everybody that come in, I immediately knew, that we weren't going to have a meaningful conversation." But the cameras were rolling, and I mean, he still did it, and he used that footage to show other stuff. But, he identified really quickly that, you know what, these people are really a waste of time. And if they're a waste of time, move on, because there are plenty, and I mean plenty, tens of percents, again, that far left on the spectrum is 5 or 10%. So, I mean, you've got 50, 60, 70, 80% of people out there that you can reach, that you can bring over, that they're not sold on the left, or they're sold on the left, but they're not a part of the left. In other words, I get back into that same thing. The left has just drawn them in. They've hoodwinked them. They've used emotion. They've used scare tactics, bullying. I think Night Strike said something about, that.
Yeah, I mentioned it, yes.
Yeah. And that's the tactics they use. They use, for lack of a better word, I mean, right now they use violent or abusive, I guess would be a good word, tactics. And we've got to do the opposite. Well, I go back to Reagan when he was running, and he was at the Republican convention, and he's talking about, the Republican candidates at the time, and he's like, we need bold colors to set us apart from the Democrats. And he was talking about his, the other ones that were running in the Republican primary. And he's like, we don't need these pale pastels. And he was talking about himself being bold and completely different than any of the Democrats. And he's like, that's what we need. We need bold colors, not pale pastels. And that's what we need right now in the firearm community. We need to be boldly different than the opposite side. And that's the only way I think we get anything done.
Well, and you're also talking about Crowder, and you're talking about how he tries to set common ground. And one of the best ways to ever ask an anti-gunner about the Second Amendment, if you're talking Second Amendment, is to bring up the First Amendment. Okay, the First Amendment reads, "Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or the press, or the right of people peacefully to assemble, and the petition of governments for redress of grievances." Okay, so you look at what the left side typically, what they're very, very, very good at. They're very good at freedom of speech, and they're extremely good at quote unquote peacefully assembling. They'll throw a rally or a march for just about anything. Okay, so if you want to start a conversation and talk about Second Amendment, you sit there and say, look, your group of people live and barricade yourselves behind the First Amendment. What if someone tried to come and take the First Amendment away from you? How would you feel? And you start out by saying, we can all agree that the Bill of Rights were there for a reason. The Bill of Rights are what make this country great. Can we not agree on that? Yes. Yes, we can. So if someone was trying to come and take the First Amendment away from you and your group, how would you feel? Well, I wouldn't like it at all. Well, now you know how we feel. Just because we have different thoughts about guns doesn't mean that we're both the same patriots. We're fighting for our rights. It's just we might disagree on which rights we like more than others. But that's how you start a conversation, is you have to let them understand that we're fighting for the Second Amendment. You might be fighting for the First or the Fourth or the Seventh, but we're fighting for the Second. But we can all agree that it's egregious for the government to come after our rights that were put forth in the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. If they don't agree with that, then they're not patriots and they're not true Americans, and they will never agree to those terms. So they have to come back and say, well, I guess you're right. I would not feel good about them coming after my First Amendment. You're at a rally. You're exercising your First Amendment at a march. What if we took that away from you?
And that's a valid point in another sense as well. And that sense is we don't have to win them over and make them pro-gun, tactical, competition shooting hunters. As long as we can move them far enough to where they're like, okay, I respect your right to do that or have that. That's all we got to have. Whether or not they partake of that, right, that's irrelevant. And I think a lot of times we fall into that trap too, to where, and I think that's where a lot of the fist pounding and that sort of stuff comes into play. But I think that we get into this trap to where we go into this mode to where we're trying to make them pro-gun, and we don't really have to go that far with it, I don't think.
Yeah, you're sitting there talking. Someone was talking about that. I can't remember who it was, talking about there are a lot of pro-gun people out there, and we have to address all of them. That's the problem. That's in essence, that is the problem. There are, let's say, 10 to 20% of the radical left that are anti-gun no matter what. There are 10 to 20% of people on the right that are radically for guns no matter what. Let's say that there is the 60 to 70% in the middle that's who we have to go after. And I would be willing to bet of that 60% in the middle, I'd be willing to bet that there is a majority of those that may not be pro Second Amendment, shall not be infringed, but they have no problem with guns. Okay. The problem is these people are pro gun. They're not necessarily pro Second Amendment. So you're actually preaching to people that may be gun people, but they don't care about the fight for the Second Amendment. And the more and more we push this craziness and this rhetoric and this bullying and all this stuff, we're not making them anti-gun, but we're making them shy away from our fight. We have to be able to bring in all these people that are actually maybe pro-gun, and not say you have to be pro-Second Amendment, but just don't be against us.
Yeah.
Well, I think
they're FUDs, man. That's exactly what they are. But we can't call them FUDs all the time and expect them to help us. That's the whole point. If you continuously call these people FUDs day in and day out, and we demean them in a way, how do you expect them to ever be on our side when we need them?
And yes, that's a great point. That is a great
I think that there are pro-gun people that are Democrats. Yankee's a Democrat and is very pro-gun. So there are people out there.
It's weird.
There are people out there. Yeah. Sorry about that.
No, it's cool. No, it's just you mentioned a very good point. Yankee is Democrat, but he's pro-gun, which is weird. You have no idea how weird I find that, but it happens. If we could get, I hate to say this, and I'm not. And a lot of people think I'm anti-Democrat, and I kind of am, but kind of not. But the thing is, you're right. If we could get more of even more of the Democrats to be like the Yankee, and I hate to use him as an example, but there we go. If we could get more Democrats to at least be pro-gun like Yankee is, then maybe we would be better off.
Well, my dad and my grandfather's Democrat Party was very pro-gun.
Yeah.
Democrats historically have been more pro-gun than Republicans. Historically speaking, pro a lot of freedoms actually. Um, somewhere along the way for them, and it was somewhere around Johnson, honestly. It started happening somewhere around the New Society, I think.
Well,
Things started becoming more about control. Not just gun control, but control in general. Control over a voting base, control over society, control over, you know, racial demographics. Just control in general. And I know we don't need to jump off that rabbit hole into that rabbit hole because that's a big, long, drawn out spiel. But we've got multiple fights here, and the problem is we fight the wrong fights. We go after the 80%, 60%, whatever it is in the middle, the same way we go after the hard left.
Right.
We can't do that. We gotta fight the right fight there. We go after the lack-a-day gun enthusiast, whatever you want to call him. The same way we tend to have the same approach no matter who we're talking to, and that doesn't work. When people need help and they go into counseling or go into therapy, there's not, what do? They sit them down, they ask them questions. Tell me about your mother, tell me about your father, tell me about your childhood, tell me about, and then they get to know that person a little bit and then try to figure out what's going on in their mind. And that's because we're all different. And the approach that we've got to make with people is going to be different. But one thing that we've got to do is we've got to figure out a way. We're never going to bring, like I said, we're never going to bring our side together. And I'm not saying that to be pessimistic or negative, because we're all individuals. That's the whole premise of why we're on that end of the spectrum. So that's a positive. That's great. I mean, we're the embodiment of freedom and, freedom of choice. But we've got to figure out a way to have a unified message. We've got to figure out a way to coordinate in such a way to use people's strengths as best that we can use their strengths. Some people are going to be best to get out there and talk to people. Some people are going to be best just simply to write congressmen and, put together memes and images and stuff and do Instagram, not really communicate with people because they're not necessarily good at that. Other people, are good for riling up the base, or getting the base. I mean, look at like I said, your big channels and stuff that are out there. All they've got to do, and so far I've seen none of them do it. When we have a rally or like the hashtag Why I Carry event that is trying to, I say we because again, I don't know who started that, honestly, but we're trying to get going for next weekend. All they would have to do, the big dogs, is just a 30-second little PSA to say, hey, this is going on.
Mm-hmm.
It's all they've got to do, and they're not willing to do that, and there's 48 out there watching now. And so what I've got to ask is, for the 48 that's out there now that are subscribed to those big guys, why do you let them get away with that? Why?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's a couple comments out there, and it's going political, and you kind of brought it up a little bit earlier, Clover, starting with Johnson. It probably started during the 1960 election, because that was the first time that a presidential debate was televised. And a lot of people will tell you straight up, had there not have been a televised debate, Nixon beats Kennedy.
Yeah.
He beats him. Here's the thing. Over in the media and the television of politics, the televised politics is this. You very well could be a voting Democrat for many different reasons, but you might be pro-gun. But what has evolved of politics over the last 40 to 50 years is saying that they have absolutely divided the country into red and blue. You're either a Democrat or a Republican. And if you're a Democrat, here's what you must believe. If you're a Republican, here's what you must believe.
Yeah.
And people that are our age that have kind of grown up and there are many social issues that I am very liberal with. I absolutely, and this might offend somebody, I have absolutely no problem with gay people getting married. That does not bother me one damn bit. If that makes you happy, love who you love, man. Just love somebody. So in that sense, you know, I have some issues that are very liberal that I don't mind.
Yeah.
But I also are very convictedly strong in some very conservative issues. I'm very fiscally conservative. I'm very socially probably liberal. And that's okay. But what you're told by the media and the younger generations, not maybe necessarily ours, because we've grown up through Reagan and Clinton, and we've all kind of had this thing where we take bits and pieces that we like from everybody, and there's certain things that we didn't like about Reagan as well. But here's the thing. Now, the generations that are coming up are being told, if you are a Democrat, this is what you must believe. And if you are Republican, this is what you must believe.
Yep.
And not necessarily a gun issue, guys. Yeah. It's a societal issue.
And they will, here's the thing, the party will censor you and which means they basically file a thing trying to get you basically removed from office. You know, if you don't align with them completely all the way down the board, this is what's wrong with partisan politics, is they throw all these money behind a certain candidate or whatever, and they even do that on a local level. And you know, you have to align with them 100%. And then if you step out of that line the least little bit to go, hey, well, wait a minute, you know, okay, 90% of this I'm okay with, but this other 10%, I don't know about that. And for them, it's all or nothing. And that's another reason why, regardless of what it says on your voter registration, that's why I say, Ghost says, bunches of other people say, you know, there's that 60, 70%, whatever that are absolutely in the middle. It may say Democrat, it may say Republican, it may say whatever on their voter registration. But when it comes down to it, they don't toe party lines. They're not beholden to that party.
Oh, exactly. I mean, like I said, I have
myself muted, but yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. Well, I'm working on GunTube in the background, trying to restore some of these accounts from, you know, when I had to wipe it a couple versions ago. But yeah, I can't say it any better. So I agree, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to rag on the other side, because you know I'm me.
We're not saying that anyone needs to change who they are. We're not saying that, because, and like Clover said earlier, there are certain types of people that we have to have. Okay. Right. And you and I, Night Strike, are, you know, we will both sit here and we believe in pretty much everything the same. We have different approaches as to how we communicate it. But are either one of us wrong? Heck no. Does our community need both types of people? Heck yes. Yes, they do. And so no one's saying change who you are. We're saying we need to change the fight. It's not change what you're saying. It's change how we deliver it. It's change the fight that we're saying. They're going after. Change our tactics, not our message. Our message is strong. Our message is factual. Our message is irrefutable. Yeah. But we're not doing it the right way. Okay. Right. And Rico 556, I want to say it's Rico, I'm not really sure how to say it, but he had a good point. He said we also have to stop dividing ourselves, and by ourselves I mean putting ourselves in team A and team B, because when we put ourselves in those terms, it makes the fight even harder. And that's exactly what we're just talking about. Team A might be shall not be infringed for my cold dead hands. Team B might be I'm extremely pro Second Amendment, but I take a lighter, more sensible, quieter side of it. We can't sit there and say, well, we don't need Team A or Team B. Team A and Team B, when joined together to make Team C, is really strong. But the problem is, I mean, it is if we're using it correctly. But here's the problem: is you have Team A and Team B. They're fighting two different fights. Yeah. They've got to fight the same fight if we're going to do it.
Well, but it's it's one of them. Yeah, it's one of them things where you've got and I use I talk about fighting the right fight and using the right techniques, and I guess that falls on teams, I guess, in a way, because like I said, we're going to be divided by teams. There's going to be no way around that because of the individual nature of our being on the right side of that spectrum. It's going to be. So what you've got to do is utilize that in a way like you would, let's use the analogy of the military, right? We don't fight a battle in the Pacific Ocean with the Army, and we don't fight a battle in the Sahara Desert with the Navy. They're different. They have different roles. They do different things, but they're fully capable to take on a specific fight. And they got to fight the right fight. That's what I'm saying. You have to put them in the right fight. And that's what's going on now is I think you've got your teams, and I think there's more than just A, B team. I think there's possibly all the way out to Z, and it may double the letters up with all the micro fractures that you see in the community. But, you've got to put them out there to where they're best suited to make the most impact. And we've got an awful lot. It's just like honestly, we're probably doing here. We've got a lot of this preaching to the crowd, and I can't get it out enough. That's where these, like getting out, getting on social media, making it a part of Americana again, everyday life, our lifestyle, and making it known. It's got to get out there because, we get, a few people through here every now and then that are new, maybe just coming into the community. They've just heard something, whatever, but those are few and far between. For the most part, we're preaching to the choir here in a way. And it requires everybody. It's not just the ones that turn on the cameras or the ones that post pictures on Instagram.
There's someone else that says, how do we get rid of the echo chamber? That's the $1 million question.
Well, we got to have the echo chamber because otherwise we don't have conversations like this, which coordinate the teams that we have.
We can't have these, but move on from these. How do we take that next step? And that's a great question. That's kind of what we're trying to discuss right now is what's the next step?
You take it upon yourself to go, everybody here is they're calling their congressman and and they're doing all that and they're probably putting it out there. But I'm telling you, utilizing social media as much as people hate that, that's the tool that for years now the left has used, and again, left of this Second Amendment spectrum, but the left, well, even the political left too, I guess, has used for years, and we have to use it, but we have to use it in our own way. We can't use it in the same way. It's just like right now, if Yankee popped in this chat, right, he's going to suck all the oxygen out of the room. We know this. And to the extent right now with the people that are in this room, if Matt even was to jump in this chat, he would suck all the oxygen out of the room. If we try to utilize social media and tactics in the same way that the left does, we can't do that because they're already doing that. They've sucked all of that oxygen out of the room. It's not going to work. There's nothing there left to gain from that. We can't one-up them on that. So we've got to utilize the tools and then play within that system, like I said, to create a bold alternative to what they're peddling. Because they're snake oil salesmen, folks. They're peddling trash. They're peddling garbage, and we can put out a civil, positive, message that will bring people over. It'll happen. But we've got to do that as normal people, not as, fist pounding, screaming to the top of our lungs, irrational. We can't have that type of a persona put upon us. And right now, that's what we've got.
Right. Oh. Where to go from that?
Had my mouth full. Sorry, I was eating some bread. No, I think that's a very.
How is that bread?
It's pretty good. It's garlic cheesy bread with marinara sauce. It's pretty damn good.
Oh man,
Yum.
Oh.
I'm gonna have to go make a run.
Oh man, really, really good. You can make it yourself, man.
Oh, I could. It's just I'm lazy.
No.
I'm honest about it though.
Yeah, that's they say that the first step to recovery is admitting you have a problem.
They also say that honesty is the best policy. Not that it won't get you in trouble sometimes, but it's the best policy.
Tardot's out there. He's talking about getting the conversation started. I made a post. I pushed the hashtag why I carry thing out on Facebook earlier. And one of the things that I put in there is, hey, while you're doing this, while you're pushing that stuff out there, the deal is that creates opportunity. And it doesn't put you in a situation to where you're going to get ambushed because you're putting it out there. You're making the move.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody comes along, and wants to have a conversation. Well, do it. Have a positive, inspiring conversation with that person. Have an educational conversation with that person. If it's somebody that comes in and tries to troll you when you do that, delete it, ignore it, move on.
Yeah.
Yep. Don't interact.
Absolutely.
Just don't even they don't exist, because that's the, that's a problem. I mean, as soon as you acknowledge their existence, if we're talking about the hardcore left just coming in to troll, as soon as you acknowledge their existence, you've given them validity. So ignore them. Like I said, don't waste your time. Move on to the people that you can pull over, because there's tons of them out there.
But in my case,
Go ahead, Gary. My bad.
I'm going to say in my case, and I've been thinking about this a little bit, for it to have any effect at all, I'm going to have to make posts like that on my Gary Decker Facebook page, which is the one I share with my friends and family and people in general. Because the Gizzard Gary one, I'm obviously preaching to the choir there. So I'm going to have to get out with people who may or may not be sharing the same views as me in order to get the kind of exposure, same way as my Twitter account and everything else. Now, it doesn't mean I need to be in your face or anything else with it. I have to carefully choose the words that I use and present myself as a normal person who happens to be pro Second Amendment and who happens to conceal carry. And here's why. And make a logical and reasonable statement as to why that's a logical and reasonable thing to do. Not that, hey, I'm pro 2A and anybody who doesn't agree with me is an idiot. That's not going to get me anywhere.
Well, I want to address something out there that Vanessa Kitty's saying. She says, why don't people want to defend themselves from threats? Why in this world would someone do such as no action at all? Because we are endowed with a right from our Creator, the right to defend ourselves. We're not forced to defend ourselves. We don't have an obligation to defend ourselves. So that's why some people, Buddhist monks, for example, you don't see them blowing up stuff or causing havoc, and they likely would probably not defend themselves if, somebody raided one of their temples or monasteries or whatever you call them. They would probably just pray to their whatever Buddhist god to save them and peacefully just get slaughtered, most likely, because that's just their belief. They believe that even though they would have that right They are not going to take part in the taking of another life or whatever at whatever the cost. And there's something a little bit honorable about that in a way. The point is, and this is the reason I wanted to address that question. That's the wrong conversation. The conversation needs to be that, you need to respect, first of all, understand that just because you have a right doesn't mean that you have to participate with said right, and respect the fact that that person is not participating. But the conversation needs to be, why do they not respect then your participation of said right? That's where the conversation needs to be. Not on why,
Another part of the conversation.
Why do you not do that? I mean, maybe they don't know what they do that. And maybe part of the conversation needs to be making them aware that it's okay that they don't want to take part in that right. If I wanted to not exercise free speech at all, I've got the right to do that. I could just go to a job and come home and turn on the TV and, never really talk to anybody or say anything or have an opinion about nothing. I've got that right. I could do that. There's probably, I dare say, millions of people in this country that go through every day of the week doing that. And I think I've got an uncle that may be one of those people, to be honest with you. I don't know that I've ever heard him voice an opinion about anything in all my years. He goes to work. He's retired now, but he would go to work, come home. You would see him at family functions. He'd sit over there. He was fairly quiet. He would talk about baseball or football or something with you, but very seldom did he even interject an opinion about that. He would just talk scores or who won this game or who won that game.
Oh boy.
Okay. I'd like to talk a little bit about Facebook a little bit.
Okay, go for it.
Social media in general, there's some Facebook stuff going on out there. And part of this whole why I carry or whatever you want to, we want to try to do is understand this, guys, is a lot of us have many sides of our lives. And for a lot of us, the gun part of our life is a big part of our lives. And it's very important to us. But that is just one part of our lives. We're parents, we are citizens, we are coaches, we are teachers, we are, business people, we are whatever you are in your community. And your community includes Facebook and your friends and all that. So if you're wanting to go ahead and understand that not everyone has the same thought processes as we do, not everyone has a part of their life that's that important to them. What I'm saying to you is why I carry or whatever hashtag or whatever you want to make, don't do it in a militant, aggravating way. Put pictures out there. You know what? Probably one of the strongest pictures you can put out there for the hashtag why I carry is put a picture of your family. That's why I carry. It's for my family, to protect my family. Yeah. You're not making it a military or a militant statement out there that I'm pro-gun and from my, you're saying here's why I carry, guys, or put just like I did yesterday, just kind of put what you're carrying that day. You're not saying go buy guns and if you're anti-gun then screw you. No, you're saying here's why I carry, guys. Here's what I'm carrying and here's why I carry, because I can, or it's because of my family. But understand this, if you do it in a way, we have an opportunity to take Facebook and Twitter and Instagram to a whole nother level, especially Facebook though, because I'm not talking about our production media channels. I'm talking about our personal, with all of our true friends in this world, around the country. I have a lot of Marine Corps friends on my Facebook. I have a lot of local friends and all that. I have friends from high school. I have all these people, and they're all different backgrounds. They all believe in different things. But if I put out a picture of my family and say, this is why I carry, that could speak huge volumes to those people that may not agree with you. Oh, well, no one can argue we want to protect our families. No one can argue that, whether you're liberal or not. But if you're looking to start a conversation, even amongst your friends, yes, you might lose some friends on Facebook. But you think those people are going to lose your friends? They just might not want to see what you're posting on Facebook. It doesn't mean they hate you. It just means they don't want to see your stuff that you're posting. They don't. I've blocked a lot of my friends because all they do is post whatever they're eating 3, 4 times, 5 times a day. I don't care that you're eating mashed potatoes and gravy
or language
or whatever. But it doesn't mean I'm not friends with them anymore. You know, it doesn't mean that. It just
friends in real life anyway.
That's right. Use it to your advantage, but understand that it is a good way to start a conversation. But if someone doesn't like what you're saying on Facebook, it doesn't mean they don't like you as a person. It means they just may not want to see your posts anymore. Right. But don't take it as a person that says, well, we're no longer friends. Now there very well could be some people out there, and that's sad. But
yeah,
utilize this and be willing and able to start a conversation, a peaceful, factual, intelligent, respectful conversation. And that's what Facebook could be really utilized for. That's how we could spread the message, is putting really cool images of why we carry or why we like guns. That's not AR-15 to the target range. It's simply showing my wife and my daughter saying, this is why I carry.
Well, addressing Double T and Night Whoop a little bit with what they're saying out there. Double T's talking about basically labels. That's what he's talking about. That we got to stay away from. We got to stay away from labels. And then Night Wolf was talking about reason they carry. God forbid they need it to protect their family, that sort of thing. Pretty much the same reason everybody else does. So a couple of things that I'm going to say about both those statements. I don't disagree with those at all. But I would just kind of add to caution, whatever with that is when you're doing this, why I carry, when you're out there and you're, showing the lifestyle. And I think we need another hashtag. Matt's got the hashtag one more, but why I carry, that's specific to carrying. Matt's hashtag one more is, I get it's a contradiction to the hashtag no more or one less or
you're on Instagram a lot,
whatever. I get that, but I think it needs to be something about revolving around lifestyle. If
I use that hashtag, I just use the one that's called the gun lifestyle, and I use it every now and then on Instagram.
Yeah. So with that, what I say is, caution with the labels. I've said it several times already on this chat. When I'm talking left and right, I'm talking a pro-gun, anti-gun spectrum. I'm not talking about a political left and right. So, make sure that you're clear about that. This is not a political thing. I would not in any way insinuate within any of these posts any type of, don't interject politics into it. Let's get it out there with society and the lifestyle, and let's separate that part. Like I said, it's fighting the right fight. Let's separate that. Let's quit lumping all this together, and let's separate out, trying to change the perceptions, trying to combat the misinformation, whatever. Let's separate that from the political fights. And then that way people can easily see that, oh, well, here he is, he's posting, HB, whatever, call your congressman. And then a couple of days later, it's, oh, well, check it out. They're going to the range today or something. One is a little more serious than the other. And let's try to be, again, let's try to be educational with it. Let's try to be inspirational with it. Let's try to be positive with it, that sort of thing. And I don't know, show people that it's an awesome lifestyle to have. Should they choose to partake of that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and Ben says we need to stop using kids to push our arguments. Agreed, Ben, and that's why I had said something to you, cornered you on the kid that, you know, got in trouble for supposedly not attending the walkout. It's not why he got in trouble. He got in trouble for not following directions or protocol or whatever, because and every school has had that, you know, and he's apparently the only kid, you know, that out of all the kids that had a problem with it or had a protest against the protest or whatever went on. But, you know, he basically got in trouble. They said, okay, well, you know, you can go walk, you can walk out, which most kids did because kids are kids and they had the opportunity to get out of freaking school, and they had the opportunity to go along with their girlfriend or their boyfriend or their buddy or their, you know, whatever, their BFFs, and basically skip school. And I've seen some man on the street, I guess it's kid on the street, interviews from that. And the majority of them, you know, I would 90+% didn't have a freaking clue, you know, why they were out of school or what was going on, you know, which is scary in and of itself. But, you know, they were out there just to be out there because that's what kids do. Come on. And, you know, it was, hey, either, you know, you go walk out or here's the alternative. You've got study hall. Some of them had, you know, sit-ins or whatever in the gymnasiums. Some schools, you know, with parents' permission, could just stay home that day. There was a lot of things that went on, and basically he was bucking the thing. He didn't want to go to study hall, and he didn't want to go to do the walkout. So you've got one kid that we're hearing about across the nation with all of this, and the right has now used him in the same way that the left has used all the other kids. And I'm talking about the political right and left at this point. The political left used the kids walking out to, you know, try to make their point, to politicize that. And now the right is using this one kid and, you know, and twisting what actually went on, by the way, to use this one kid. So it all needs to stop. We need to quit using kids, period. There's plenty of, like I said, that's not the right fight. I talk about fighting the right fight. And grown people fighting kids and belittling kids and arguing with kids, and, you know, it just don't, yeah, it don't work. And I'm talking
that's just petty using kids
to an extent. And I know some of you out there are that may be college age. I get that. I'm not. My baby girl is college age, so I'm not going to get too down on even college age. To me, that's still a kid. You know, 22, 23, maybe even is to me is still a kid. So I'm not going to get down and dirty and too crazy even with those. I'm going to try to educate. You know, I'm trying to figure out where they're coming from and see if I've got an in, you know, to start a dialogue or a conversation. But I'm not gonna flat out belittle them because, you know, they probably went from public school, which they didn't learn nothing at, to now college, which they didn't learn nothing at. And it's what I keep hollering to Ben Farrell out there. Just get out of school, get out of trade school, get out of college, whatever, and get out into the real world, because, you know, it's if you're out in the real world, you realize that it's not, you know, and this is going to sound bad, but I really don't care. It's not as bad as you think it is. It's really not as bad. It's never as bad as you think it is. It can be bad. So, you know, don't take that the wrong way by any means. But with the way things get so, you know, we hyper focus on things, you know, political left does it, the political right does it, you know, mainstream media does it, social media does it, to where they just hyper focus on every little thing, and we just think that this is the world and this is the, you know, whatever. I mean, I had a conversation earlier, and may end up actually losing some online friends again with this, but had a conversation earlier, and we were talking about protecting schools. And they were talking about doing it in our area here in Texas. And we are probably one of the most funded, poorest, whatever counties, whatever. Probably in Texas. We've got to be on the low end of the spectrum for sure. And I think you're probably talking. It's definitely a single digit in the millions, single digit budget for the county. And there was a lady that come on, and I think she's a teacher, and she come on and she was talking about how we've got to protect our kids. I don't understand what's going on, and the county needs to spend the money and upgrade these schools and do all this stuff. Well, you put pencil to paper with a couple of the schools, and I mean, you're talking millions of dollars with all of the school campuses, right? Because you've got in each town, and there's not but a few, but in each town you've got 3, 4, 5, 6 different campuses, right? Well, I mean, even if it was a very, very conservative, a couple of $100,000 to implement fences and bulletproof glass and electronic lock doors and that stuff, not counting added security personnel and maintenance and things that would be a regular cost, right? Just the implementation would be, let's say, $250,000. Well, that's one school district could easily have, potentially $3 or $4 million in cost there. And I told her, I said, where's the money going to come from to do that? I mean, barring a federal grant, or, some type of some type of state funding, but we're talking one small county, again, one small, by all accounts, poor county with small schools comparatively. And then when you extrapolate that out across the entire country, and I told her, I said, look, I said, not being callous with this, but school shootings since 2010, right? There's been like a little bit over 170 deaths with school shootings. Now, if you break that down, that's total. So if you break that down, and I don't have it in front of me right now, but if you break that down, that includes drive-by gang violence that happened on school property, that happens to that things have happened on baseball fields and football fields. That's not mass shootings at schools, right? Just deaths from shootings on school property in general. In the last 8 years, there have been 170. We're talking about spending billions and billions and billions, if not trillions of dollars. And that's something that, not being callous, but that's something that we have to look at. Does anybody, and I'm just curious, does anybody on the panel disagree that we need to look at that and go, is it really a problem that deserves throwing that type of money at?
No. Maybe.
And like I said,
no, as soon as we do that,
I'm just throwing it out there for a conversation. But it just
I don't
crazy.
know. I'm not the person to ask.
More kids die of suicide every year than anything. Couldn't we, and that's another argument that I made. She was talking about, I said, well, because I was kind of playing devil's advocate, and I was just trying to, and it was an interesting conversation. We didn't argue or fight or anything like that. It was all civil. And I was kind of playing devil's advocate on some things just to try to, we were just having a conversation, because the actual answers to all of this, I think, is all multifaceted, and I don't have the answer to it. So that's why we have to have the conversation.
Right.
But, I told her, I said, okay, what if we put all this in place? I said, and then the schools are like a prison. And she's like, well, I don't care, as long as the schools are safe and, and we don't have to worry about our kids and all of this other stuff. And then I come back and I said, here's the thing. I said, kids already have a couple of strikes against them, because kids in society nowadays are sort of raised sheltered in a sense that they're sort of sheltered from the evil existence of evil in the world. And also that plays into as well. That plays into the everybody gets a participation trophy. Everybody's got to feel good. We should all feel good and be happy type thing. And that it's abnormal for somebody to be depressed or scared or upset, right?
Or unhappy.
We're all or unhappy. It's not abnormal to be unhappy. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being depressed over something. Now prolonged conditions of that, then yeah, you need to seek help. But there's nothing wrong with that and learning how to deal with emotions. But kids aren't taught that. And then couple that with the psychotic drugs that are given out like freaking candy. Little Johnny is running around the neighborhood. Well, little Johnny's a freaking 8-year-old little boy. He's supposed to be running around the neighborhood. That's what don't have kids if you can't handle your 8-year-old little boy running around the neighborhood like an 8-year-old little boy does. Don't give him drugs because of it. No. Then they give little 8-year-old Johnny these drugs for 10 years. He turns 18. Or something happens and mom and daddy fall on hard times and they can't afford the drugs, right? And little Johnny has lived his whole life with his feelings being suppressed by these drugs, and then now he's got to deal with them, which he hasn't been taught to do. So you've got all these systems in play. And I said, with all of that said, and with all of that going on top of that, sending your kids basically to a prison to go to school, I said, how is that going to, do you think that would affect the psyche of those kids at all? Because I think it would.
I don't know if you've noticed, but if you've ever been to California and seen the schools in California, I've had to go to them in my younger days. And yeah, you really couldn't differentiate the difference between a school and a prison in California. So I'm just saying that from my experience because all of them look pretty much the same in California.
Well, I don't know. Like I said, it was just that.
Hopefully they torn down some of them and built new ones or whatnot, but
I'd like to address the question that was posed to the panel a few minutes ago. You said, does anybody on the panel think it's a good idea to spend billions and trillions of dollars? The problem is if we're going to spend this kind of money, okay, and we're going to try to protect our kids at school, and we're going to try to fortify our schools, which is basically what we're talking about. We're making it a fort, making it a military installation with concertina wire, military guard checks when you can come in and out, electronic door locks. Hell, I've even heard bulletproof glass in all schools. The simple fact is this: there's 2 points. One, you can't stop evil from happening. If someone wants to commit a crime in a school, it might take them an extra 3 months to plan it, but they're going to figure out a way to do it. You can't stop evil. So it's wasted money to a certain extent. But 2, let's say we fortify our schools. Where are they going to go next? They're going to go to the grocery stores. They're going to go to the movie theaters. They're going to go to the nightclubs. They're going to go to Walmarts. They're going to go places where people gather. It's not necessarily them wanting to kill kids. It's wanting to make a point by killing people. It's not necessarily a kid thing. They're trying to make a point and become famous by a mass shooting. They'll go wherever they need to go. So if we're going to fortify our schools, we might as well fortify our Walmarts, our restaurants, and our movie theaters, and everywhere else, because evil's going to happen. It just depends on where it's going to happen.
Well, there has been, a lot of this too. Again, we hyper focus. We hyper focus on this kid thing. And you talk about where they're gonna go, right? The majority of people that commit a mass shooting are adults, well into adulthood adults, not just young adults. There's 2 in the last 20 years, 2 mass shootings have been done by underage. Panel.
Hmm.
Chat. I think it's an astronomically low number like that. That's part of the argument right now with this. Don't let 18-year-olds buy AR-15s. It's like there's been two instances happen with that. And again, we get back onto an issue to where we hyper focus on stuff, and I'm like, God, just step back from it for a minute and let's think critically. But that's another thing. Schools don't teach that. Schools don't teach critical thinking anymore.
Schools don't teach much of anything anymore.
And you got to be able to step back and ask yourself the hard questions and have a conversation about those hard questions. And sometimes it sounds callous and it sounds like you don't care, but you have to play that out, and see where it leads. You're not doing anybody any good if you just sweep it under the rug and ignore it.
Right.
And I know we went way left field with the conversation we were having, but
it's fine. I don't mind. I welcome the conversation. Granted, I am jumping in and out as far as because I'm working on trying to restore a bunch of accounts on GunTube. I don't think I can restore them all, but I think I can restore a majority of them. And that's what I'm working on right now. So I enjoy having somebody to talk to while doing this because it's a pain in the ass. So
I know there are some arguments out there in the chat about whether or not putting up pictures of your children and saying this is why I carry is using your children for manipulation. I don't think, in the same vein that the left is doing, and I can't agree with that, to be honest with you.
I don't think that is utilization because if it's your kids.
Well, I'll say this:
if you're putting a group of random kids, or you're taking a picture of a school classroom or something, then maybe. But your kids, no, I don't think so, because you are responsible for the protection of your kids.
What you're talking about is the difference between utilization and exploitation. If you're talking about putting a picture of your kids saying that's why I carry, that's one thing. What they're doing is using kids to send the message. We're not using our kids to send the message. We're utilizing our kids to make a point. They're actually exploiting and using kids to send out their message. That's the difference.
Well, no. And it would be different if we were doing that. If I did not carry, and then I put my, kid's picture out there as the reason I carry. Well, that would be dishonest. That would be disingenuous. So I mean, that would be exploitation too.
All right, we have an incoming Smeggy, so watch out.
Uh-oh.
The tactical snowman.
He said he was involved in the chat earlier. So
yes, he was. So I'm sending him a link as I'm continuing to work on this stuff. But as I'm working on GunTube right now, what I'm doing is I'm going and if you have videos on YouTube, I'm going and recreating your account, and I'm uploading one or two of your videos onto GunTube to see, because right now I'm in the stress testing phase to see how well it handles people having videos up or downloading their videos from YouTube to upload onto GunTube. So that's what I'm doing right now. Anyways, Tactical Snowman, what's going on?
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
Hey.
So, I was hearing you talk earlier about the whole school thing and does it mess with the psyche of, making them like prisons or whatever? There has been people that's exactly what they complain about, because in Detroit, most of the schools, like especially in the rougher neighborhoods, they already have metal detectors. They already have like actual police officers at the door, and searching bags. And normally that's finding drugs or whatever, but they already have that type of security. And that's the exact complaint that people give, is it's like it gets the kids like used to this type of control, and they say it's like, school to prison pipeline and all this stuff. So, and I don't know all of the psychology, but the people who apparently do say that it is harmful to the kids of going through all that stuff. It's one of those things. It's like, I know from my personal experience, I travel a lot, And you know, sometimes I'm in not nice areas, sometimes I'm in nice areas, whatever. But it's like I notice it, I feel it when every gas station I go to has the bulletproof glass and all this stuff. It makes me think, well, they probably have that for a reason. Like this is probably a little bit of a rough neighborhood. And I'm a little more alert than when I'm in a town that doesn't have that kind of stuff. You know, if every business has barbed wire around their parking lot and you have to like sign in with a badge or something to even get into the parking lot, now most of those are like the factories and stuff. It makes me think, well, they have a problem like this, you know, and I don't know if it's damaging me long term, but at least for the time I'm there, I'm a little more cautious. And so if a kid going through that every single day, they're going to sit there and think the world is scary. Like the world must be scary if they have to protect us this much with, you know, mounted machine guns on the roof or whatever. I mean, I'm obviously going extreme, but if they see that every day, everywhere they go, you know, it probably does mess with their mind, and it harbors this. The world is scary, and everyone's out to get me.
Yeah, it's a lot
and that's
worse.
Not a good mentality to have for a kid, especially like little kids, like elementary school or something.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because they can't understand the complexities of it.
There's a flip side. There's a flip side to that too. And the flip side is that yes, I mean I absolutely agree. I mean it paints a picture that the world is that area may be a rough place, but it paints a picture that the entire world is a rough place. And here's the flip side of that I wanted to talk about was school, in a sense, is it's a time where kids sort of learn about the world, in a sense that they're kind of on their own. Their parents aren't there with them. So, they're kind of on their own. And then they have to learn a little bit about, some responsibility a little bit there. And they have to learn about society and interacting with others and, a few small, not huge life lessons per se, but, it is a social experiment in a way. So when you've got that situation to where you're creating an environment that makes them think that the world is a cesspool, an absolute cesspool. And then on top of that, they will be protected from it because they are there in the school. Then you've prepared them for absolutely nothing when they get out. They get out and that school, the world is not as bad as what the school was. And then on top of that, what little bad they do get into, they're not prepared for because they've never thought in their mind or had that conversation. And I'm going to tell you something. And I said this to the lady on Facebook that I was having the conversation with. You got to talk to your kids, man. You got to talk to your kids, and you got to, they got to know. You got to be a parent and let them know. Look, the world, evil is out there in the world. The world is not a horrible place, but evil exists. And it could be around any corner. So talk to them about contingency plans and what do they do if this happens and what do they do if that happens, and then quiz them on it every now and then. Don't just sit them down and talk to them about it once, talk to them about it every few months, bring it up and say, hey, remember when we were talking about, if this happened, you remember what I said you should do, and then that way, if something was to ever take place, something was to ever happen, then, maybe they would have the presence of mind. And we've talked about this, I think, on a TNG show or something one time, but they would have the presence of mind to hopefully be able to survive that, if not save others.
And another thing that, sorry, I'm trying to like remember back some of the stuff you talked about that I was going to mention, but when you're talking about your school doesn't really have the budget for doing all this crazy stuff or whatever. I get that, and I would say it's one of those, the schools, I think they should maybe do a little bit more, and it just kind of depends on how much on either their area or how much money they have and whatnot. But I do kind of support, like, I would call them like passive safeguards. I mean, the thing with like, oh, you should have locks on the doors or whatever. They don't have to be fancy electronic locks that are controlled by Skynet or whatever. Like just having a regular lock on the door. I know my mom used to work in a preschool, and their policy was just when the kids were in the room, to have the door locked. So like no one from the hallway could just come in. And they also had the front door, the parents would get like a little badge to come in. And I think that was more like for making sure the correct people pick up the kids. You know, you can't just have a random person be like, "Oh,
Yeah,
your
right.
Uncle John's here," and it's just like some dude, you know. And I don't know if they ever had anyone kidnapped at the school or whatever, but I think that was kind of what it was from, was so that they could control who was picking the kids up. But either way, they did that for preschool, and the teachers would just lock the door when they were in the room with the kids, and like unlock it when they go to gym or whatever. And like I don't remember that at like when I was in middle school and high school. Like they never did that. Most of the time the doors were propped open to the hallway, like actually open. So it's like that's an easy fix. It's just here's our new policy: when you're in classroom, you know, have the door closed and locked. And then the other thing is like, you know, almost like fire doors kind of thing. I remember that in my high school they had them where like these fire doors would automatically close and then like block off a whole hallway. Like you couldn't open them. And then, you know, but if you had something like that, that would block off, if there was a bad guy in there, he wouldn't be able to get into like that whole left wing. Like it's blocked off by these fire doors that, you know, lock. And so if you have the money for it, cool. And if not, well, you know, maybe not. So I don't know. I don't know all the answers, but I definitely, I hesitate when I say like they should do something in schools, but also, like I said, I don't want it to turn into a prison type thing. Oh, the other one, I've said it a bunch before, but there is no reason why every single classroom shouldn't have a trauma kit. You know, tourniquets and
Absolutely.
you know, what compression bandage or like the chest seal or whatever.
Quick clot
And
and
just give
stuff.
the
Yeah.
teachers training in that. They already get CPR training. They already get like allergy response training. Just toss in, you know, another seminar and teach them how to use tourniquets or whatever. Because a lot of times that kind of stuff saves lives in events like that. It might not stop the number of injured people, but it reduces the number of killed people.
Fatalities. Yeah.
Well, I think
Exactly.
there's to be said about what we can and can't do at a school. And here's the problem: there's no one magical answer. There's not one thing that you can do that's going to help. It's a combination of a lot of things, and a lot of it comes down to, and this is going to be one of it is I think that you have to be more aware in schools, teachers and students, and you know, administration. Everyone has to be more aware. If you're seeing kids, and we've talked about this before, it's a lot of this goes into, you know, not eliminating the issue, it's preparing for it and minimizing the tragedies. Is if you see kids that are actually having problems, and these teachers know who the troublemakers are, they do, you know, it's not necessarily turning them into the authorities, it's talking to them. It's, if you feel like you need to talk to somebody and be genuine about it, I'm always here. Here's my cell number. Call me 3 o'clock in the morning if you're having issues. You know, you got to start that point. But as far as the fortifying and whatever you want to call it of imprisonment of these high schools, it's like you said, there's not one answer. It could be locking doors. It could be metal detectors. But like that Clover said also, there's a lot of schools that can't afford some of the stuff, and that's okay. But there are things that don't cost hardly any money at all that you can do, and that's just being more aware. It's talking about tragedies in your classrooms. Don't be afraid to talk about tragedies, because the problem is if you don't talk about it, then it's going to feed on itself. If you do bring up tragic events and school shootings and all that, you might reach someone out there that's having problems, and they might sit there and say, well, I was thinking about it, but I guess, you know, there are ways that you can combat people with who have bad thoughts, but you're never going to combat evil. And no matter what we do, no matter how much money we spend at these schools, evil is going to happen. And that's just a way of life. And I'm not trying to be the pessimistic side, because I'm not a pessimist at all. But you're not going to. There's going to be a combination of things that have to happen. But I think the community and that school has to come up with a plan as to what they can afford, what they're willing to do. And there might be a lot of people out there that says, look, if you want to pass a penny tax or a millage attached to our property taxes to help support the defense of our schools, I can't imagine that not passing. People are probably willing to pay an extra 2 or 3 cents at Walmart on their hot dogs if they know that money is going to go to protecting our kids at school. There are ways around this, but you have to come up with a plan that works for your school, because every school is different. There are a lot of schools. The high school that I went to and I graduated, my graduating class was 1,600 kids. My graduating class, 1,600 kids. Our campus was a college campus. We had 7 or 8 buildings. So you can't sit there and lock all the doors, because people every hour go between building to classes. So that wouldn't be an acceptable way in our school. But there's something we could have done differently. It's going to be different than a small town that has 1 building. So there's not one answer, but there's got to be a way that these school districts and local governments can come out and figure out a way that works best for their community and their school. There's got to be something that's done. The problem is that's going to be different for every school out there.
Mic drop.
Yeah, no, I'm reading the thing out here. Just laggy McLaggy lag. That's pretty funny. But they're saying, like, just playing devil's advocate. But like the locking the schools idea, or locking the doors idea, wouldn't it trap innocent people in as well as the bad guy? Yeah, the person that's in that, like the person that's in that wing with them. But the other thing is, and wouldn't it be a problem for in a fire? Well, I'm talking about like fire door locks, where it's like you can push out and get out of the school, you can't come back in. And so, like the classrooms, you could, if like the thing happened wherever, like in your classroom is on fire, you can push the door out, get to the hallway, and go down and go outside. But a bad guy can't come into the math class or whatever. So that type of thing. But anyways, I was just kind of, and like I said, I don't necessarily have all the answers. There's probably people that have looked into this kind of stuff, and I'm going with let everyone do, a little bit, whatever they feel is the right balance between like being a little safer and like wasting too much money on something that doesn't work or whatever. It's one of those things that these things are more rare than lightning strikes, right? I mean, more people get struck by lightning in a year than a mass killing happens. So if you use almost that same analogy, like, should we protect our schools from lightning? Well, yeah, we'll put a lightning rod up. But do you think that like the entire school should be a Faraday cage? Like, no, that's probably gone too far. Like, just do the lightning rod thing, and that protects your computers, but it doesn't need to be like, you don't need to go crazy about it. Should you have all the kids wear rubber suits and when they're playing outside and they might get struck by lightning? Probably not, because it's pretty rare. And so the cost versus the benefit, when you weigh that out, it's like, it's probably not going to happen anyways. That's the thing I think is important to always keep in mind. We're at 0.00001% of these things happening or whatever. And yeah, I just made up a number, but super, super rare these things happen. And we're trying to reduce damage and save lives when these super, super rare events happen. And we're trying to make them like, 50% less deadly or something. Like, so it really does get down to, I don't know how far you want to go.
I think a lot of it comes down to also is the reason why this is such a hot topic is the last mass shooting was at a school and you have children involved. If the last mass shooting in Vegas, I mean, you're talking about an open area concert. There was the bump stock thing came out of that, but you never heard any people talking about, well, how are we going to secure these concerts and ball games and all. You never heard about there being legislation and let's go spend trillions of dollars on securing and fortifying these outdoor concerts. You didn't hear about that. You're talking about schools. So, and what I'm doing is I'm agreeing with you, Smeggy, is saying this is such a rare happening. Yes, for right now, it seems like a smart thing to do is to fortify our schools. But that money, I mean, you're talking about teachers that some of these school districts haven't gotten raises for these teachers in a long time. Well, if you're going to go raise money for the schools, then they're going to sit there and say, well, why can't we give teachers raises? Which there's not a right answer to any of this. But the problem is like you said, these mass shootings don't happen very often, and when they do, whatever happens next time, like in Orlando, the nightclub in Orlando or Miami, whenever it was a few years ago, you never heard about there being legislation on how to secure all bars and nightclubs in the country. So they understood that that's almost impossible to do. Well, because this is such a sensitive issue with kids, people want to say, well, let's just throw money at it. Money's not going to stop evil, people. It's reality.
Right. Well, I think also part of the reason you're hearing this, like, you're right. The school, it's kids, people, they care more. It's just the way it is. Like, and that is why they're trying to like ban all semi-autos, or they're trying to like go way overboard. So I think part of the reason, I mean, just to be practical about it, part of the reason that even the right's like talking about, school safety is because that is an alternative to banning all guns. And I think it's a more realistic thing. Like, I would rather do the school thing than ban all guns. So it's a way of kind of steering the conversation. I mean, they know what they're doing when they bring this kind of stuff up. If we can stop getting people to say guns are evil, some people may be evil, but guns are just things. In fact, that actually brings up, I don't know if we can switch topics here a little bit, but I guess like the main investor in Smith & Wesson, like some group, wrote them a thing like, as your biggest shareholder or whatever, like, you have to answer my concerns. And they basically asked them, what are you doing, like, as a manufacturer to stop, like, guns from getting in the hands of people that commit crimes? Because apparently the Florida thing, it was an M&P AR-15. That's the first I had heard of it. But so they basically were saying, like, hey, Smith & Wesson, you made this gun. How can you stop this? Oh, shit, I missed the wording up. It said something about, like, stop the gun from getting in the hands of someone. But then it said also, like, stop the gun from killing innocent children. I'm like, it was really weird how they worded it. And Smith & Wesson basically came back, was like, dude, we make stuff. We're not responsible for people that use our stuff criminally.
We're a manufacturer, man. We make, why are not people call, like you live in, in the Detroit area? Why are people not calling Ford and Chevy every day? How are you going to make to where drunk drivers can't kill people? It's not my job. My job is to give you a product, and how people choose to use that product, we have nothing to do with. That's what the laws and the regulations and law enforcement is for. We're just a manufacturer.
Right. And then actually, so I'll tell you where I saw this, just in case you guys want to watch it. It's one of those, it's kind of cringy, but it's actually better done than a lot of anti-gun stuff. It was on the Young Turks, and it was Dan Rather, which apparently he's fallen from grace if he's working for them, but whatever. And it's I don't know, 4 or 5 minute video or something. And he spun it then into smart guns and all this stuff. And basically, because like the investor asked it, like, well, did you think of doing smart guns? Which, for one, smart guns wouldn't have changed this scenario. This is one of the things I said in the comment to their video, was like, this person was the owner of the gun. So even if smart guns existed, like, it would have been his fingerprints that unlocked the gun anyways. So it still wouldn't have stopped it.
Right.
And their base response was like, dude, we kind of tried it. Nobody wants it.
Well, the emotional response to pretty much anything, and especially, when you deviate from logic in facts. I mean, come on, when you can't step back from things and think about it, look at it critically, the response is always going to be, we need to do this. Well, that wouldn't have made a difference in this case, but it may make a difference on the next one. So it's like they're admitting that there's going to be a next one, even though we do what wouldn't have solved this one. There's somebody still going to attempt a next one. So yeah, it's insane.
Wow, there's a lot of insane people in the world.
Well, Crackle P out there says that he's looking to get involved into the gun community, get a job in the gun world. Any ideas? I just put out there, yeah, go find a local gun shop and ask if you can get a job there. And what that does is that allows you to interact with people, both pro gun, maybe anti gun, that might come in there and just protest, but you also have the ability to talk to people that may not know much about guns. And so you could be the first person that they ever come in contact with and have a discussion about guns in their lives. So that's a very, very important thing. Plus, you're also there trying to get more guns in the community at a gun shop. But you can talk about gun safety, you can talk about training, you can talk about all sorts of things. But working in a gun shop, especially as a young person who's kind of looking for a part-time job, you know, that could be a very, very crucial place to start your life in the gun business if that's a road that you want to do. But working in a gun shop is very, very important. I mean, how many people go into the gun shop that don't own a gun, they've never owned a gun, but are interested, but are there to ask questions? And how many people do we see personally at gun shops that don't know how to answer those questions accurately? We need more intelligent, more educated people in gun shops trying to sell. And so if you're willing and able to, that's where I would start, Ben, is go get a summer job at a gun shop and just see how it works.
Yeah, because there's some of these gun shops you go into, and I've been to one or two of them, where there's these grumpy old men behind the counter, and if you ask them too many questions, they act like they don't want to answer them, and you're just bothering them. And I wonder how many people have come in there with the intention of buying a gun who ended up walking out because they just got scared off.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. That is kind of like a common problem. I know the one gun shop that I went to when I was looking for my CZ, they had the polymer version, and I was like, "Oh, but you don't have the metal one." And he's like, "No, you want this one." And so I'm open to, I'm still learning about stuff. I had done a lot of research. I was pretty sure I wanted, the metal frame CZ75, but I'm like, okay, like why would I want the polymer? His answer was, it's just better. And I'm like, okay, you're like a polymer fanboy or whatever like that.
He's just trying to sell it to you.
It's lighter for carry. It's better recoil. Blah blah blah. Whatever. It has a little bit more capacity. Like something. Okay, those are options. And thanks for the input. I mean, I don't think he would have brought up something I hadn't already thought of and ruled out. It was like the whole thing. Yeah, it's lighter for carry. Well, I carry my heavy one. It's not a big deal. So whatever. But that almost turned me. And if I wasn't already like a gun guy, I hadn't purchased a handgun before. That was the first handgun I purchased. I might have been like, oh, well, guns aren't for me. Like you have to be grumpy or something to own guns. So, well, yeah, I think that's definitely a very good point is, you have to be informative and you are their first contact. And maybe some people, especially if they grew up not around guns, like they might already be scared of guns. And it took a lot of courage just to walk into the gun store. Like, and whether their fear is justified or not, I don't think it is. But in their mind, it is justified. They're a little nervous about it to begin with. And if you make it seem shady or you make it seem scary or whatever, then they'll just be like, oh, my fears were correct. These are scary things and I shouldn't have one. Therefore, no one else should have one either.
We had a lady about a year ago who went into the local academy up here in Topeka, and she happened to be a local TV personality. She had a cooking show on one of the local TV stations, but she had consulted with her family because she does a lot of traveling. She wanted to have a gun to protect herself, and her sons and her husband had recommended she get a Glock 19. Well, she wanted to go into the store and get one, so she told the kid at the counter, said, I want to buy a Glock 19. And his immediate reaction was, I can't sell you this gun because you're attempting to make a straw purchase. And he completely denied her from buying that gun. She ended up going on social media and blasting Academy. They had to print an apology, and she ended up going to another store, but they were basically profiling her because she didn't look over the gun first, because she knew exactly what she wanted and she asked for it by name, and they just assumed she was making a straw purchase.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. That is kind of like a profiling thing. At the same time, though, you know, that gun stores are allowed to deny stuff if they do think. I mean, I think combating straw purchase, it is kind of about like, you know, do you get a weird feeling about it or something? You know, it's like you always hear the stories of like a guy and a girl walk in or whoever, two people come in, and one person is, you know, looking at all the guns and asking all the questions, and then the other person is like, okay, I'll buy that one. And it's like, wait a minute, what's wrong with the first person that was looking at it? You know, you might get a weird feeling, and sometimes it is that brazen. Other times, yeah, they just tell them what they want. So it's like straw purchases can be kind of hard to combat, and it's one of those. It's unfortunate for her. You know, she got caught up in some biases. It's probably because she didn't look at the pink one, and she didn't look at the little tiny, you know, whatever Ruger LCR or something, and then decide on the 19 first. They just profile and were like, oh, this isn't right. But I kind of want to give the gun stores that leeway.
Well, remember, they can deny selling a gun to someone, but again, it comes back to because they did that, they're gonna get backlash from that. Granted, that's not going to be for every situation, but in situations where the person was just fine to buy a gun, they are going to get backlash for it. So whether it's a celebrity or whether it's someone who says, they denied selling me a gun, I'm a legal citizen, I'm going to go and sue them. That'll happen.
That'll happen.
Because
well, we're talking about all sorts of stuff like the semi-automatic bans and the bump stock bans and all this stuff that the people are trying to get pushed through. You're talking about the same thing as straw. You know, if you try to create legislation for these straw purchases and all that, there is no way to regulate it. There is no way to administer anything except for, like you said, if they can do that, that's their right to, and it's any business's right basically to deny doing business with anyone they feel like they don't want to do business with. But like you said, there is going to be repercussions to it, and if they're willing to deal with that, that's fine. The problem is I think this is going to be something that's actually going to become a little bit more widespread. Is you're going to have these salesmen, and let's not call them gun experts that work in these gun stores, especially at the big box stores. Most of them are not gun experts. They're salesmen that.
Oh yeah, they just transferred from automotive last week.
That's right. That's right. So you're asking these people to look into the minds of a person who's trying to purchase a firearm. That's the slippery slope is when you start getting these, and there's nothing we can do about it, but what you're going to see is these academies, these different big box stores, they'll start, their sales will suffer dramatically because there's no way to stop it, but I think it is a problem, and it's going to get worse and worse, I think, as we go along.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. I think we've stretched this out as far as we can. Do you guys want to talk about something else, or do you want to go down the rabbit hole further, or what?
I've actually got to probably leave here in a little bit. I leave in about 5 minutes, so you guys can do what you want. But thanks for letting me come on and speak my mind. And I like these little rant sessions sometimes. It's good to get some pinned frustration out. I like it.
Well, you know, believe it or not, you feel better after a night strike style rant. I'm telling you.
I mean, I don't feel dirty. I feel kind of dirty after your rants because it's just so wow. But it's nice to. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Well, you know, not everybody can be night strike. I understand.
No. That is definitely true. No, it was a good job. Good job today, and I like the fact that you just kind of let people go, and that's a good thing.
Well, we got to hear all sides to it, and if people have to rant to get their side and their position out, well, then guess what? That has to happen. But as long as we also address the people out there on the chat too, then, you know, I don't mind. I'm sure they love it too. So, yeah, do you guys want to kill it or do you want to continue on? Ghost, if you got to leave, you got to leave. We'll see.
Yeah, I got to bail, so it's good to see you guys, and I will. I'll probably see you guys tonight or later on the day, but I've got to just step in there for a little while.
Yeah, I probably need to bail myself.
All right.
Yeah, I say we go ahead and shut it down. Just but before we do, I just kind of want to plug something here real quick. I wrote a song last night.
Uh-oh.
I put it up on my channel. I jumped in, I did a live stream, and then I just killed it. It's like, I don't know, 2 minutes or something. But I encourage people to maybe go over there, listen to it, and give me some feedback in the comments. I know it's like it's not good, but there's like something there. Like there's a start of something. I just need to figure out what to do to make it better. But anyways, I'm looking for input basically is what I'm asking for. If you can, think up a line that sounds pretty good with it or whatever, give me some suggestions. That'd be cool.
Well, I like the way that you varied the person you were talking to in each verse. That was kind of cool.
Oh yeah, yeah. I need more suggestions of people to say sorry to.
You could go on and on with that if you wanted to.
So, anyways, I just wanted a little shameless plug there, and like I said, I wrote it while walking home last night and then recorded it when I got home. So it's not the best quality, I can admit that. But oh well.
It was good. I enjoyed it.
Oh, there you have it, folks. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening to us rant. Listening to my small updates on GunTube. Uploading videos to it. Recreating accounts. Not everybody's account has been recreated. I've only recreated the accounts that I can recreate, and that's mostly a lot of the content providers. I'm still going to try and get a few more done, but more or less, if you aren't signed up on GunTube already, go to guntube.org, sign up for an account, or don't. But I'm working on it. It's a thing. I'm not going to delete your videos unless I actually have to because of a server situation. So there's that. Also, make sure to check out Hit or Miss, Tuesday nights, 9 o'clock Eastern. Check out the Friday Night Strike at 8 Eastern. Check out Night Strike rants whenever we do a rant video or something. I'm on Rant and Rave with Roll Call 219 on his channel. I may start doing these after trigger time chats, just for the factor that sometimes it's earlier on in the afternoon. You don't want to go into a lobby, but you want to continue the conversation from what Matt was talking about, and because sometimes he can't always get into everybody's comment and hear everybody's position because he's trying to read it and he's got like 400 people watching this video. So that's what the after chat is for. So there we go. We'll see you guys. Yes, take it easy, and shall not be infringed.
Thanks.